guys, in today's routine, we are going to do a quick prone routine where we are going to be really waking up the sides of our hips using our thick resistance bands or using a yoga strap. So the yoga strap might not give you quite so much burn, but it will be absolutely fine as an alternative. As ever, look after yourselves. If being in a prone position, laying on the floor like this, aggravates any pain or tension for you normally, then this probably isn't going to be the routine for you. Give it a go. You never know the improvements that you've made, and actually you might surprise yourself. But be willing to walk away from any posture exercise, any posture routine that doesn't suit you. If this doesn't suit you, there will be tens more in the library that do. It's just a question of exploring until you find those ones that work for your body. I've chosen the thickest resistance band today to go around my legs. Maybe that's stupid, but we will find out soon enough. So pick your poison. You can choose a less intense band if you want to take it a little bit more easy today. But if you really want to challenge your body, the thicker band is going to get those muscles waking up a little bit more. I've taken the band just above my knees, but quite literally just above my knees. They're not on my knees though. And I'm going to come to a prone position, laying on the floor. I want you to be comfortable in your upper body, however that looks for you. And what we are going to do today, this is really going to be quite a quick blast. We're going to do 3 exercises. I want you to point your toes really, really hard. And when you point your toes, I want you to be cautious of hyperextension of your knees. So for lots of you, because you lack plantarflexion, which is this movement here, this pointing of the feet movement, if your feet don't plantarflex very well, what you might do as a coping mechanism, as a compensation, is this, and like lift your knees up off the floor. So I want you to make sure that your knees stay on the floor, and that whilst you point your toes away, what you're trying to do is push the tops of your feet and your kind of ankles and your shins towards the floor. You're not buckling backwards in your knees, and that's compensation. Keep the knees down. The movement comes from the top of the foot, not from the knees buckling backwards. And then what we are going to do is slide our legs, both of them at the same time, outwards. So you're going to do this type of movement here. I'm taking both of my legs out against the resistance of the strap. I'm staying relaxed in my upper body. I'm breathing in and out of my nose. I'm sending that breath deeply into the bottom of my rib cage, and I'm keeping my toes pointed throughout. You are hopefully going to notice maybe cramping around your feet. That's a good thing. You might notice cramping around your calves, but you're also hopefully going to notice the sides of your hips waking up as well. We're going to do 2 minutes here. Off we go. So we're squeezing, holding, and releasing. Squeezing, holding, releasing. If you need to, you could potentially take your legs a little bit off the floor, if it's a bit hard to kind of slide your legs, but do bear in mind that that's going to make it quite a lot more challenging for you. So if your legs are lifted as you move outwards, you're putting your hips into more extension, so it's more demanding for your kind of glutes, your hamstrings, and the muscles around your pelvis. And if you don't have that strength, you might find that you go into your lower back. So I'd rather you stay on the floor the first time you do this, if your floor allows you to. I'm trying to squeeze out equally with both of my legs. I'm keeping my toes pointing. My upper body stays relaxed. And what we are doing here is abducting our hips. So we're moving our hips away from the midline of our body, and that is going to wake up our abductors. But it's also going to start waking up your glutes and your hamstrings as well, just because of how all of the muscles work together, having the presence of the band, but having your hips in this position of extension is also going to wake up your hip extensors, which are these guys here. If your lower back is complaining at you whilst you are in a prone position, it's a sure sign that you cannot extend your hip functionally and you're hyperextending your lower back. It's really, really common. And if that's the case, you are better off trying to teach your hips extension with exercises like supine groin stretch, which is in the class library as hip flexor stretch. Start there. The better you get at that exercise, the more likely you are to achieve functional hip extension in things like this. Okay, that is time. So we've moved both of our legs at the same time. And now what we're going to do is exactly the same thing, but we're going to do one leg at a time. So I'm going to move my left leg first for the purpose of the video. My right leg, I'm still pointing hard through my toes and staying grounded through that leg. Remember, the knees are not buckling backwards and lifting off the floor. The knees stay on the floor. It's the front of the foot that we are trying to open into plantarflexion. My right leg is going to stay still, and I'm going to squeeze out with just that left leg. So when you're just moving that one leg, you're probably going to be able to get a little bit more range of movement, especially combined with the fact that the muscles have switched on a little bit now because of what we've just done. I want you to make sure that you do not rush this movement. I want it to be that your pelvis stays very still, your right leg stays very still, you point that left leg, and you are trying to take that leg as high as you can to get as much work and cramp as you can. As I do this, notice how I'm not rotating through my pelvis. We don't want pelvic rotation. We want the front of the hips down. We want the pelvis firm and still. It's the leg that is moving around the stable base, which is the pelvis. Don't rock your pelvis or upper body as you do this. Imagine that you're trapped between two panes of glass, and the only thing that you have permission to move is that left leg out to the side. Hold it when you find that burn and draw it back down. We're going to do a minute here on either side. Off we go. Keep breathing. Relaxed in the neck. Relaxed in the hands. Relaxed in the jaw. Really trying to keep that upper body nice and zen. I'm kind of noticing that at a certain point, I'm trying to rock my right hip off the floor. So I'm sort of actively pushing down a little bit harder through that right hip just to make sure that it's not compensating or my pelvis isn't rotating to compensate. Keep breathing. You may well notice that not only do you get burning happening around your left hip, but you might still get it on your right hand side because the resistance of the band is still going to be working your right hip even though you're not moving your right leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give yourself a little bit of a break, and we are going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So this time, my left leg is staying still. I'm keeping the toes pointed, and we're going to take that right leg outwards for 1 minute, going nice and slowly. No rocking of the pelvis. We just want burning around here. Off you go. Really notice how much you're trying to drive drive the movement by tensing your upper body. You really might notice here that you're clenching your hands or clenching your jaw or whatever it might be. And this is your body showing you that it doesn't understand this range of movement that we're asking of it because it's dysfunctional in hip abduction and or hip extension, and it's trying to recruit what it normally uses to help you out in those instances. So be aware of it, try and switch them off, and if you can't achieve the exercise without all of that tension in the upper body, it's not an exercise for you because you're just reinforcing compensation rather than rewiring how your body responds to a movement that it doesn't understand. And that is time. Okay. And our final exercise that we're going to do here is we're going to take our strap or our band lower down. So this time it's kind of in between our knees and our ankles. And we're going to finish with a few prone hamstring curls with a strap or band, as the case may be. So for prone hamstring curls, the movement is this. So we're keeping that same situation with our feet that we've just been doing, and we're squeezing out with our lower legs, just like we were doing to keep waking up the outside edge of the hips. And now we are going to do this movement here, which is going to put our hips into extension. And the way that it's going to put our hips into extension, which is this open position here at the front of the hip, is by waking up the glutes and the hamstrings. We are not going to be able to wake up our glutes and hamstrings if we kick our feet back. So if you're kicking your feet, what you're doing is you're using momentum around that lever to trick yourself into getting you there. And what you'll probably notice that happens is this. So your bum will probably lift up. Watch that movement that I'm doing. Can you see how I'm curling into my lower back and the front of my hips have lifted up off the floor? This is where a great deal of lower back pain and tension and wear and tear comes from. My hip right now is not in extension. My hip has moved back into flexion. Can you see that bend that's happening at the front of the hip? And my hip's in flexion, but my lower back is in hyperextension. I feel absolutely nothing here through the backs of my legs. There's no glute work, there's no hamstring work, and there's no calf work. So what we are doing as we do the hamstring curl is we've got to keep the fronts of our hips pinned to the floor. We are not curling our pelvis up like that. We're keeping the pelvis down. We're pointing our toes and we're moving really slowly and steadily. I'm cramping in my calves already. We're moving really slowly and steadily to make sure that we're not lifting our hips off the floor as we do the movement. The toes point, the feet squeeze, the lower legs squeeze out against the band, and we are moving slowly enough that we are creating resistance for ourselves where we can feel our hamstrings, the backs of our legs waking up. Okay, this is a very different movement to this, which is what most people try and do. If you're doing it fast, there's no way you're using your hamstrings. If you're doing it slowly, you'll start noticing it will creep into your hamstrings and glutes, but you might not feel it straight away. We're going to do 2 minutes here. Off we go. So I'm relaxing my upper body. I'm pointing my toes while squeezing out against the strap around my feet. You might notice that if your hip extension is particularly dysfunctional, that you're in this type of territory with your range of movement. There are some people, well, lots of people really, who will be needing to start off around about here before they then start noticing that they're lifting their pelvis up like that. So if that's happening, well noticed. Stay where your body needs you to stay. Focus on the function, focus on the form, focus on the muscles burning in the calves, the hamstrings, and the glutes. And then when you are in a position to take your legs further, you've got to make sure that the hips are not lifting up off the floor as you do it. Because if they are, you're no longer extending your hips, you're hyperextending your lower back. There we go. Keep breathing. Relaxing the upper body, relaxing the breath, pointing the toes hard, squeezing out against the band nice and hard. This should be an entirely lower body exercise. There shouldn't be any lower back pain. If your lower back is hurting, it's struggling with the hip extension. It's very straightforward. And so therefore, hip extension laying prone exercises are probably not for you because they are asking your hips to extend quite strongly. There are other things that you might need to do first, like not with your legs fully extended like this, before the hips are going to be ready to extend. And you can ask me in the community group what those types of exercises might be. This is just the backs of my legs, the sides of my legs, and my feet that I feel here. Nothing in my upper body. And that is time. So that was our little quick prone band routine or strap routine today. Stretching out those hips, working our extensors, working our abductors, and hopefully when you stand up, you might notice that not only does your lower body feel quite different, but actually your upper body feels much more upright and free as well. And that is an example of how all the body is connected. We haven't done anything upper body based today whatsoever, but you might notice that your upper body feels freer due to having an increase in function further downstream. I'll see you again soon. Bye.